Hi, boys and girls. It's Mrs. P, and I'm reading Chapter 10 of Amelia, Bedelia, and Friends Beat the Clock by Herman Parrish. And remember, this is where they're looking for the 100-year-old time capsule at their school. And it's supposed to be buried under a tree, but they've been looking under the wrong one. So, Chapter 10, Watch Out. Oak Tree Elementary was finally 100 years old. It was the perfect day for a party. The air was crisp and clear. And the sun shone on the school building, making it look like a giant cake. The television crew and newspaper reporters arrived early to get set up, and students and parents started arriving too. Many families brought their dogs. Amelia Bedelia's dog, finally, was all decked out in ribbons and balloons. Everyone gathered first near the old oak stump for the official kickoff of the Centennial celebration. Amelia Bedelia and her friends were put in charge of digging up the time capsule. After all, they knew exactly where it was, and having practiced once, they uncovered it again. They uncovered it again in no time. The hardest part was prying up the stone lid and lifting it off the small vault that held the time capsule. Luckily, Mr. Jack had a crowbar just right for the occasion. Inside the vault was a metal container about the size of a toolbox. Other than some small rust spots, the time capsule looked like it was in good shape. That meant that the contents would probably have been preserved. The sound of hooting and whistling and applause, to the sound of hooting, whistling, and applause, Amelia, Bedelia, and Joy lifted the capsule out of the vault and set it gently on the stump table. And suddenly, there was a commotion in the crowd. At first, Amelia Bedelia did not recognize Pete. She was used to seeing him in a white apron day in and day out behind the counter at his diner. She never expected to see him in a blue blazer and a flowered bow tie. He approached the stump and smiled at Amelia Bedelia. "Hi, Pete," said Amelia Bedelia. "Here is our VIP," said Miss Hotchkiss. "He sure is. A very important Pete," said Amelia Bedelia. "I clean up pretty well, don't I?" said Pete. "It took a ton of work," said Doris, smiling as she walked up behind him. "Pete, we invite you to officially open the time capsule since it was your great-grandfather who closed it 100 years ago," said Mrs. Hotchkiss. "Thank you. This is quite an honor," Pete said. "I open this time capsule in the name of Mr. Pete Hoffman, my wonderful great-grandfather and the first principal of our favorite school, Oak Tree Elementary." Pete lifted the lid and laughed. "It didn't even squeak," he said. "I would have after 100 years." He began lifting out items he found inside. There were some games that the students had probably contributed, and photographs of the teachers and the kids, and a fancy pen. There was a menu from a restaurant. Amelia Bedelia looked over the selections and added up the prices. Wow, it would be hard to spend more than $50 for lunch. An issue of the local newspaper was rolled up and tied with string in 3 places. Ms. Hotchkiss handed it to Mr. B, the school librarian. He unrolled it and spread the sections out on a nearby picnic table. "Let's see what was happening 100 years ago," said Mr. B. Cliff read the sports page. The 1920 World Series had just ended. The Brooklyn Dodgers lost to Cleveland. Listen to this. The New York Yankees are still happy with getting Babe Ruth in a trade from the Boston Red Sox. The Yankees expect he's going to do great things. Cliff shook his head. Joy was shaking her head too, but for a different reason. "Guess what happened in 1920? She said. That should have been one whole sentence. "They added the 19th Amendment to the Constitution." "Whoopee, who cares? Sounds so boring," said Clay. "I want to read about cars." "But it gave women the right to vote," said Joy. "What? That's crazy," said Dawn. "Didn't we always have it?" "You mean 100 years ago we couldn't vote?" said Rose. "Ah, the good old days," said Wade. "Our country has gone downhill ever since you got to vote." He was laughing and he took off running. I would guess so. "Come back here, Wade, so we can vote you out of our class," said Heather. "Isn't it strange how we think things were always as they are today?" said Mrs. Shock. "It's easy to forget how much has changed and how much will change." Pete had just pulled something off the capsule. It was small and wrapped carefully. "What could this be?" asked Pete. "It sure is heavy." Pete unwrapped the object with care. He began to shake when he realized what he was holding. "This is my great-grandfather's watch," he said. He pressed a little button and the lid sprang open, revealing a face decorated with Roman numerals. 2 words were engraved in fancy script on the inside. "Tempus fugit," read Pete. "I can't believe I am holding something my great-grandfather used every day." Okay, we are going to read chapter 11. B-Day. Amelia Bedelia found her parents and finally took them through the school lobby to show them the things that had started the search for the time capsule. The framed photograph that had fallen in the school office had been repaired and looked better than ever. Amelia Bedelia studied the smiling faces and wondered who had put the bag of marbles in the time capsule. The letter from the first principal to the current principal had been framed and was also on display in the trophy case. Amelia Bedelia showed it to her parents and then pointed to Peter Hoffman, Pete's great-grandfather, in the photograph. "I see the resemblance," said her mother. "That's amazing," said her father. "Sometimes accidents really do lead to surprising discoveries." Then Amelia Bedelia and her parents went back outside to help with the activities. Amelia Bedelia had volunteered to sell her famous lemon tarts. She and her mother got them from the car and set up her booth. Penny had promised to help, and soon she arrived carrying a cardboard box for cash and some art supplies. "Oh no," said Amelia Bedelia, "I forgot to make a sign." And she began arranging the lemon tarts in the shape of a giant letter L that was 6 tarts wide. "That L looks yummy," said Penny, and she drew a sign that read "Emmen" and propped it up next to the giant letter L to spell lemon. "Thanks," said Amelia Bedelia. "Let's open for business." Oh, that's funny. See that? The big letter. Whoops. Sorry, I bumped the camera. See that? The letter L made with the tarts, and then Emmen. "Oh, woo!" Amelia Bedelia's dog finally spoke up from under a bush next to Amelia Bedelia's booth, and finally had to be wherever Amelia Bedelia's lemon tarts were because she loved them so much. Too much. Finally was not the only dog who felt that way about lemon tarts. Most of the dogs in town thought that Amelia Bedelia's lemon tarts were spectacular. Most people did too. "Poor Finally," said Penny. "Can I save her one little tiny tart to try?" Amelia Bedelia nodded and passed one to Penny. "I always make a special one for her. Tiny but tart," she said. Penny handled the money, and Amelia Bedelia served up her lemon tarts to happy customers. She had to keep rearranging the tarts into a capital L shape. An hour later, she had only enough tarts to make a little L shape. After the last 2 tarts were sold, Amelia Bedelia and Penny closed the booth and took off to join in the festivities. Right away, they ran into Rose. "Check out this picture of me from 100 years ago," said Rose, showing them a photograph of her, Heather, and Daisy wearing old-fashioned dresses. "Wow, you guys look like you stepped out of that photograph and in the lobby," said Penny. Amelia Bedelia's father was volunteering at the photo booth. While Amelia Bedelia and Penny sorted through the big box of costumes from the 1920s, he explained how he had come to be friends with the photographer. "We once did a magazine ad for a cookie that was supposed to be baked with real old-fashioned goodness," said Amelia Bedelia's father. "So we made the whole photograph, including the cookie, look like it was from another time." "Did people buy a lot of cookies after that?" "No, unfortunately, the cookies that looked like they were from another time tasted even older." Amelia Bedelia chose a dress that was covered with feathers, and Penny wore a shawl with long fringe and an even longer pearl necklace. Amelia Bedelia and Penny were very happy with their photographs. "You two look like true flappers," said Amelia Bedelia's father. Oh, that was from the Roaring Twenties. Amelia Bedelia flapped her arms, and Penny joined in, and then they fell on the ground laughing. "Have you seen Mom?" asked Amelia Bedelia as she finally caught her breath. "I saw her heading that way," said her father, pointing at a table loaded with plants. Amelia Bedelia and Penny took off their costumes and then waded through the big crowd around the plant table. Amelia Bedelia was certain that her mom was there someplace. Amelia Bedelia's mother adored plants and gardening. The plant table was covered with little kits named or labeled, "For sale, oak tree elementary kit. Grow your own tree with an acorn from our tree." Each kit included a paper cup filled with soil and a baby oak tree sprouting from an acorn that had fallen off the school's oak tree. The school's motto, "Mighty oaks from little acorns grow," was written in the fancy writing on each cup. Just then, someone jumped on Amelia Bedelia and Penny from behind. "Clay, cut it out!" "Clay, don't do that," said Amelia Bedelia. "You like my big idea for getting rid of our millions of acorns?" asked Clay. "Very smart," said Amelia Bedelia, looking around. "I'm definitely going to buy one as soon as I find my mother." Amelia Bedelia spotted a beautiful tent next to the plant table. From inside, a whispery voice with a French accent called out to her, "Are you lost, little girl?" Before Amelia Bedelia could answer, a mysterious figure emerged. She was a little shorter than Amelia Bedelia, and she was wearing a long purple dress with a bright pink velvet top and lots of eye makeup. Her mass of curly red hair was held back by a sparkly clip with a big flower on it, and her long black fingernails toyed with the large beads of her necklace, and her many bracelets clinked and clanked together. "Tell Madame Brenda, ma petite, for whom are you searching? A friend? A boyfriend, perhaps?" "A boyfriend? Ew, gross," said Amelia Bedelia. "I'm looking for my mother." Madame Brenda put her hands up to the side of her head, and she closed her eyes and began rubbing her temples. "I am receiving signals from a long-ago world. Does your name finally mean anything to you?" "Yes," said Amelia Bedelia. "That's my dog." "I see the petit chien. Finally, walking with your mare," said Madame Brenda, opening her eyes. "And here they are." Just then, finally barked, she raced up to Amelia Bedelia, wiggling and straining at her leash as Amelia Bedelia's mother tried to hold her back. "Finally met a pony named Queenie, and I believe she got a little taste of some cotton candy," said Amelia Bedelia's mother. "It took me a while to track her down." "Mom, Madame Brenda can predict the future," said Amelia Bedelia. She knelt down next to Finally and tickled her chin. "Madame Brenda loves to solve all kinds of mysteries," said Madame Brenda, "especially the history mysteries." "Hey, wait a minute," said Amelia Bedelia. "We only know one expert history mystery solver at Oak Tree, and our friend is about your size." Amelia Bedelia reached out and grabbed the giant flower from Madame Brenda's head, causing her curly red hair to slide off and hit the ground. Amelia Bedelia laughed. "Joy, is that really you?" asked Penny, laughing too. And tears of laughter made Joy's makeup run, leaving black streaks down her face. "You're such a great actor, Joy," said Amelia Bedelia. "I have the prediction," said Amelia Bedelia's mother. "Another ceremony is about to take place. Ms. Hotchkiss is getting ready to bury a new time capsule to be opened 100 years from today. Let's go watch." And that brings us to chapter 12, and we'll read that next week. And say so long to Amelia Bedelia, friends.